Our next speaker is Dr. Shirish Kumar, who is going to be dwelling on the topic DALK, Advantages and Steps of the Surgery. He is a medical superintendent of Eye Foundation Group of Hospitals based at Coimbatore, senior consultant in cataract, cornea, and refractive surgeries with 21 years of teaching experience, with innumerable presentations nationally and internationally, good number of publications and textbook chapters, and a very prolific surgeon. I request, Shirish, you have to limit to your 15 minutes because we would definitely intervene. All the speakers ahead, because I think discussions are very critical.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chitra, and thank you for the wonderful opportunity. So my topic is deep anterior lamellar keratoplasty, advantages and surgical technique. As we all know, DALK is a surgical procedure that selectively removes pathological corneal stromal tissue down to descemet membrane, followed by transplantation of a donor graft without DM and endothelial layer. So for the most part, the procedure is an extraocular procedure, and it's a non-open sky procedure. It's less invasive than PK, and it avoids some of the dreaded complications like expulsive hemorrhage, or the chances of endophthalmitis is less. As you see in PKP, which is much more common because it's an open sky procedure, and the rejection chances are less as the host DM endothelial layer is retained. So the endothelial cell loss is minimal, or it's negligible. If you are not entering into the antechamber, the cell loss may not be there at all, and less postoperative complications as we can remove sutures early in the postoperative period, and the steroids can be stopped 5 to 6 months after the surgery. So most of the complications are associated with the steroid usage and because of the presence of sutures. So this can be limited, or you can reduce these complications. And donor tissue need not be A grade. I am just showing this picture just to show that this particular patient is a young patient, but we have transplanted an elderly cornea, which is around 80 years of age, old donor. So you can see the arcus here. If it is cosmetically acceptable to the patient, we can always go ahead and use these B grade corneas for DALK. And visual recovery is fast. This is a few of my own cases. The first day postoperative picture, you can see the clarity, the cornea on day 1. Coming to the surgical procedure, the surgical procedure involves stromal trephination, stromal dissection, separation, donor preparation, and suturing of the donor tissue to the host. And trephination, it can be a vacuum trephine, or it can be a handheld or a manual trephination. So vacuum trephination is more predictable with less chances of perforation. However, the perforation chances are more common in handheld trephiners. And for optimal outcomes, reaching descemet membrane is desirable, and the main concern going as deep as possible is the increased risk of perforation. Various techniques of stromal separation has been described by various surgeons. However, the fastest and the easiest way to reach descemet is the big bubble technique described by Anwar and Teichmann. Just showing a few case examples. This is a case of keratoconus. I'm just showing, demonstrating a big bubble type 1. So it's a well circumscribed and up to 8.5 millimeters in diameter, has a white edge. So this is a type 1 big bubble. And it may happen in one go, or sometimes you may have to inject at different sites. So this is the case where I'm injecting at 2 sites to accomplish a big bubble. So we have a nice big bubble here. And coming to the surgical procedure, this is another case, a very old video. The clarity may not be great, but it's an interesting video. It's just an observation after the surgery. It was not intentional. This particular patient is macular dystrophy patient could see one bubble forming now, and now the second bubble. There are two bubbles here. This is a type 3 bubble where you have type 1 as well as type 3 bubble, type 2 bubble. And this particular patient, I could dissect till Descemet's. I thought I have reached Descemet's, but I could see one more layer here. This is the Duas layer. It's actually not necessary to separate Duas layer. It will not affect your BCVA. So once you remove Duas layer, the chances of perforation increases. So it's better to avoid dissecting the Duas layers. Very thin layer, but if you remove it, it makes the Descemet's more fragile, and the chances of perforation increases many folds. Coming to the procedure, once you achieve a big bubble, I usually do a superficial keratectomy to debulk the cornea using a crescent blade and lymph forceps. And I use a 11 number blade to make a nick incision, and I inject a viscoelastic substance through this nick incision to keep Descemet's away from all the manipulations. Then I use a vena scissor and lymph forceps to dissect the posterior stroma, divide them into 4 quadrants or more number of segments, and each segment is completely excised, then taking care not to leave any posterior lip, and finally the viscoelastic substance is completely washed out, and donor preparation, donor's Descemet's and endothelial complex was then peeled off from the donor tissue, and I place it on the host bed and suture it using 10 monofilament nylon. I use interrupted sutures. And coming to suturing technique, Dr. Revati has explained in detail the suturing procedure for penetrating keratoplasty. It is something different from penetrating keratoplasty. I usually look for this rhomboidal configuration that gives us the idea about the correct tightness of the sutures, and I usually place 16 sutures if the graft size is more than 8 millimeters. If it is less than 8 millimeters, I place 12 sutures, and these sutures are buried. I usually bury it on the host side, not on the graft side, on the host side. Sometimes you may not get all the steps right. So this is a case. I'm just showing so I achieved big bubble, and I'm doing a superficial lamellar keratectomy. And brave slash was attempted. I could not collapse the bubble. I go ahead and do some more dissection of the cornea. And now you can go ahead and collapse the bubble. So you may have to deviate from your regular technique depending on the situation. Here is another case. So I inject air bubble, but there's no big bubble. It's actually emphysema of the cornea. Then you go ahead and do a superficial lamellar keratectomy and attempt big bubble after the lamellar keratectomy. So I could achieve a nice big bubble, but I'm not brave enough to make a neck incision, so I could not collapse the bubble. I go ahead with layer by layer dissection. So if you're not brave enough to collapse the bubble in the center, you can go layer by layer and collapse the bubble in the periphery. So you can avoid all the complications which are associated with the perforation of the Descemet's in the center. And once this is done, it's easy. Now I can collapse the bubble in the periphery. Yes, then inject viscoelastic substance and separate, divide the posterior layer to reach Descemet's. Coming to DALK in healed eye drops, this was discussed in the previous talk, the first talk. So this particular patient had a BCV of 6/36. There is a paracentral scar, which is a healed eye drop scar. So we can safely go ahead with the DALK in these cases. This is the OCT, anterior segment OCT picture, and this is patient's SPM values and the topography. If you follow all the steps, we should go ahead and do a manual dissection in these cases. Don't try for any big bubble technique. I am injecting the ear superficially, avoiding the central area, perforated area. And this is just to create emphysema so that my dissection is easy. Go layer by layer and be careful in the center where there is a perforation, and leave some amount of tissue there. Sorry. These bubbles, multiple bubbles, give us a rough guide. They act like a rough guide so that you should not go very deep. DALK is any day preferred over PK in these challenging cases. If the scar is paracentral, if it is right in the center, it's better to go ahead with the PK. So this is the first day post-operative picture, and this is 6 weeks and 6 months post-operative picture of the same patient. And this is the preoperative OCT and post-operative OCT. There is some amount of tissue here, some amount of haze, but the patient has improved significantly. And coming to the complications of DALK, it can be intraoperative or postoperative. Not going into the details of all the complications. Perforation is one of the commonest complications. There are various other complications which are typical of DALK. I'm not going to discuss these complications. This is a case of granular dystrophy. It was a soft eye, vitrectomized eye, and so the air enters into the antechamber. You just change the direction of the needle and inject air bubble into the stroma, create emphysema, and do a manual dissection. There is a very small perforation, and while doing the dissection, there's some more, one more perforation here, but my dissection is almost complete. I can always go ahead and complete my DALK. This is a very old video of mine, almost 10 years old, and it's doing a manual dissection, and there is a sudden perforation in the center. So it's right in the center, but most of my dissection is complete. Again, I went ahead with the DALK. I was not sure about the outcome because this was my first case with a very large perforation, but I continued with the DALK. But to my surprise, the post-operative results was very good. This is the same patient after 1 year. You can see a scar here as the perforation site, slightly below the pupillary margin, and the patient did very well, and the visual acuity has improved significantly. And there are various cases with micro perforations, small perforations. All these patients do very well. And we published this, and the outcome of deep anterior lamellar keratoplasty patients with intraoperative DM tear, DM perforation. And so the results were actually excellent, gratifying. Fortunately, the postoperative prognosis, when these presentations, perforations are successfully managed, it does not deviate from the expected prognosis in uncomplicated cases.
You will have to conclude, Dr. Shreesh.
Just a few slides. And this is another case I have shown. There's a perforation. There's a fragile DM. I have removed Duas layer. You just see it's such a fragile DM. We have to convert it into PK. Another case of it's a case of large central perforation I'm demonstrating. Yeah. And this particular patient had a healed hydrops. While dissecting the central cornea, I had a large perforation right in the center. I had a desmetocele. The desmet was so protruding, I thought I can, there was a perforation now. I thought I can insinuate this spatula and separate this posterior lamella, posterior layer. But in that process, I tuned this protruding DM. So this has to be converted because my dissection is incomplete. And the last few slides on DALK in corneal ulcers, that is therapeutic DALK. Therapeutic DALK, of course, we know TPK is normally reserved for very severe and progressive infections that are non-responsive to medical treatment, but it has its own disadvantages, and therapeutic DALK has been reported to be beneficial in selected cases of fungal, bacterial, acanthamoeba, and other types of keratitis, which is not involved the posterior stroma or which has not reached descents or anterior chamber. And you can go ahead and this is actually a picture showing therapeutic penetrating keratoplasty first day and T-DALK first day. You can see the TPK actually shows highly inflamed eye with exudates in the AC, whereas T-DALK, that is therapeutic DALK, the eye is very quiet. And it can be big bubble technique. We can do a big bubble technique if the infiltrate is not very deep, and we can do a manual layer by layer dissection if it is very deep. This is a big bubble technique, is a type 2 bubble, and one should be very careful. If you get a type 2 bubble, the chances of perforation is very high.
You have to conclude, Dr. Srish.
So the complications of therapeutic DALK is retention of infection and deep stroma, recurrence of infection, again perforation and interface opacification. So to conclude, DALK is an excellent technique which gives excellent results if we select our candidates and follow proper techniques carefully. Thank you very much.
That was a wonderful talk, Srish. Very well covered, as our previous speakers have also done great justice. You could stop sharing. I have one question to ask. Dr. Titiyal is there? Not there? Dr. Namrata, then? Would you suggest DALK in acute head drops? Because he was mentioning about old head drops.
Sir is also there. I think Sir can. Yes.
Yes. Dr. Titiyal?
Please.
DALK in acute head drops, sir.
I think few people are, doing a DALK in acute head drops also, where I've shown a good results. I've seen results from Dr. Ritu Arora from GNEC Delhi. Maybe a good concept if you get the patient early enough, where you don't have a lot of corneal edema in these cases. It depends how big is the rupture in the Descemet's membrane. If it's too big a rupture, then it may not be possible. Sometimes you have a case where they have a small rupture and big edema. In such cases, DALK is a very good option in these cases. But if you have larger, multiple ruptures, then it's better to wait, treat patient medically, then go subsequently, as nicely shown in the video. That can be contemplated, what Sirius has nicely shown. And we have also seen, if you do a layer by layer DALK in these cases, the central opacity might shift to periphery, and you still get a very good outcome in these cases with the healed hydrops. And you can plan better also. The acute hydros, I think if you have a smaller rupture in Descemet's, you have to assess with anti-segment OCT, then plan surgery in these cases.
Dr. Rajesh Fogla, questions?
Yeah, I think Shirish did a nice job showing a lot of videos, and he has shown several complications where you can end up with a perforation and the need to convert to a penetrating keratoplasty. Would like to have the panelists share some tips, what they do to avoid perforations while doing a DALK. Do you do any modification in your case selection, or do you modify the surgical technique for certain situations so that you can avoid having a large perforation and the need to convert to a penetrating keratoplasty. Dr. Namrata, please.
I think, yeah. So I think case selection is extremely important because if the corneas are going to be very thin, then you cannot do a big bubble DALC. Maybe Rajesh Kogla can, but then chances that you may have perforation would be much more. Of course, we do DALC in these thin cases only, in corneas which are thin only, and one has to be very careful when you're putting the needle or you're injecting the air bubble. Then it should be from an area which is preferably not the thinned out area, and it should be somewhere paracentral, and the best guide is that it should be at the place where the pupillary edge is. So that is the best guide. So there you can put the needle and can form a big bubble. Again, when you are doing dissection, one has to be very careful that you don't cause a perforation. Sometimes what happens is even when you are dissecting the stromal layers, you might cause a perforation, and then you're even while suturing at times, you may take the suture through the Descemet's membrane. So at all steps, DALC is something which is only when it is finished, then you say it is done, because it can get tricky and there can be perforations at any step. Having said this, there may be 2, 3, 4 micro perforations, and you may still, go ahead and complete the case, because wherever the perforation is, you start from the other side, do a layer by layer dissection, leave a little bit of stroma there. So that is one way of obviating these sites where perforation is there. I don't know about acute hydrops. I just, sir said, I have a feeling in acute hydrops, there is actually no need to do DALC. And I mean, I can't stop myself from saying that, but I have not personally done it, but I do not understand the logic behind it, or the need to do it early when one can, wait, see how it goes about, a scar is formed, and then, later on do a DALC, because I don't think you really stand to gain anything by doing an immediate DALC.
Yes, often when the hydrops resolves, the cornea can sometimes flatten and the patient can experience an improvement in the visual acuity, which may obviate the need for any kind of corneal surgery. What about post-operative stromal rejection after DALC? How common is it, and what kind of steps do you take to prevent that? Shirish, in your practice, you have done so many DALCs, so have you come across stromal rejection?
Yeah, I have come across one case of stromal rejection, and this particular patient had a loose suture, and that particular patient was actually a case of VKC. As a young patient, 21 years, he was a case of VKC, but towards the end, the VKC subsided, but he had the habit of rubbing his eyes, and he had a loose suture for some time, and he didn't realize it, and there was vascularization, stromal opacification, and that has led to stromal rejection, but we could reverse it with the steroids, topical steroids. Hourly steroids has helped him, and not started him on systemic steroids in these cases.
Dr. Titiyar, any points you would like to make on this?
I think Dr. Namrata has reported some of our cases with stromal rejection in lamellar keratoplasties. The best part, as Shirish nicely mentioned, the treatment in these cases are very, very successful. That means recovery is almost 100% in these cases, unlike endothelial rejections. If you treat these patients early enough, normally these patients come early also because they have a good visual acuity. The slightest change in the visual acuity, they'll come back to you. Treatment is quite effective in these cases, and till date, we have not seen a second rejection happening in these cases, which is quite common in the endothelial rejections. So these two are unique in lamellar rejections. They are rare. Normally, maybe a vascularization may be the cause, and treatment is very effective. And the best way to judge these patients are to see these patients effectively by doing anti-thickness. Slightly change the corneal thickness may point towards a stromal rejections. And classically, they are also seen, they start with the one particular area, and slowly they spread to the central area, the edema. So if you have a edema which is located to one particular area of a stoma, you might think that may be a rejection, and that should be an initial clue also in these cases.